Hello and welcome along, and thank you for downloading once again the Panto podcast. Pantomime season's already started for so many people up and down the country. I wish you all the very best success and luck in this coming season. This podcast was recorded with Double Trouble. They're a double act that've been going for a few years now. Tom Rolfe and Damian Elliott. Damian's dad is one of the Patton brothers, the older Chuckle brothers. And Tom, well, he'll explain it himself, started off as a juggler and ended up forming his own production company as well. Firstly, I would like to apologise. The recording isn't the greatest this week, purely for the fact that we're in a dressing room, backstage in a holiday camp, and there was a little bit of external noise going on. So please bear with it. It's a great interview.
So, hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. I'm joined today by Tom and Damian, who are Double Trouble. Hello, lads.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Afternoon.
So, how did it all begin for you both? I'll start with you, Tom, if that's okay.
As a double act.
As a double act, yeah.
Yeah, we met in Billingham, didn't we?
Billingham, yeah.
In
2008.
Yeah, in Pantomime. We were in Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I was a juggler, and Damien was Daddy Bear, and we were appearing with his dad and Jimmy, the Patton brothers at the time. And then we didn't think anything of it for a few years, and then about 3 or 4 years later, I worked with Damien's dad again, and he said I just wanted to start a double act, and I've been juggling for sort of 8 years on my own, and I thought it'd be nice to have a bit of a change and put another element to it. So we formed Double Trouble eventually, didn't we? A couple of years later, after doing some summer bits and bits over at Scarborough, and different local theatre stuff, we did our first panto together as a double act in Bolton,
Yeah.
the Outlaw Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah. Well, we were in Billingham, and I used to watch him from the side of the stage because it was my first ever panto as a professional panto. Actually, no, was it the first panto?
No.
Second panto, because I was in Bolton the year before and then Billingham, but I'd always wanted to be a double act because of my dad and my uncles, the Chuckle brothers. Like, I've always been around double acts, so all my kind of ideas and gags and that I was looking for, I couldn't do on my own. So in Panto you can put them in, but I used to watch Tom do the juggling and liked that. And then I think 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, you did Panto with my dad, like you said, and then I came to watch, and he was there again, and then we started talking. Just I, what are you doing and how you going in the business? And I said, I'm looking for a double act partner. And he said, yeah, like you said, well, I'm a bit bored of travelling by my own because it's long car journeys when you're just a solo act. And then we just trialled it from there. I think our first ever show we just tried and we put together, and there was about 9 people in the audience, but it didn't matter because we were just trialling the material, seeing if we could actually work together and gel together.
Thursday night in Saltburn in November.
So we're like, well, we don't mind because as long as we're not losing money, but we didn't mind because we didn't know if any of this stuff would work with an audience. We know the gags worked, but it's how you...
Didn't know if we could do them.
Yeah, it's how you come across. But then it went down really well, and it just grown every year from there, really.
Damien, with your dad being one of the older Chuckle brothers, Patton brothers,
Yeah.
For those people who don't know, Jimmy and Brian, your dad's Brian.
Yeah, he's Brian, yeah.
Did you go and see them at the theatre?
Well, that was my first introduction into show business, because obviously ever since I was born, he was in Panto's summer season, so he was away a lot. So we always used to go and visit him, and I used to go and visit him when I was a baby and that. But some of my earliest memories are of being in a caravan, visiting him in summer season, or going up for Christmas for a week to see him in the Panto. So every single year I went to see Pantos with them in, and I just remember watching them, and every time they came on it was like you're excited because firstly they're comedians, so you're gonna laugh, and secondly it's your dad and uncle, so it's half and half, like, oh, I know them, and half and half, oh, this is gonna be good. But I always just remember thinking, I'd love to do that one day. Like, I'd love to do something like that. How do you do a job like that? Because I was only 4 or 5 at the time that I can begin to remember. But then every year since when I started school, I did the Amdram local kind of pantos as a juvenile, and then a dancer, and then as I grew up. Eventually, when I did my first ever panto, they were in the panto. So I remember wanting to do something like they were doing, and then actually getting to perform with them. It's one of my more treasured memories of panto, actually getting to watching them for so long and then getting to perform with them. And I even had a scene with them in that show, so I get to like bully them around quickly. So that was just a big highlight. So that was nice watching them.
I think you were the Wolf, weren't you?
I was, yeah. It was Bolton 2006/7, and I was playing the Wolf because they needed a wolf, and I was very tall at the time. I was about 6 foot already.
You still are.
I'm 6'3" now, but I was about 6 foot. They're like, oh, that's fantastic. You could be a wolf, and then they're in it as well. But I also played. Oh yeah, of course. I'm thinking the next year. I was going to say I played the innkeeper, and then I got to boss them around.
That was good enough.
But yeah, the first year then I was a wolf, and then yeah, I got to as the wolf I got to scare them off stage and that. So I did 2 years on the trot with my dad and Jim as the Patton Brothers. So that was fantastic. And then I haven't worked with them since, because since then I've been in different pantos on my own, and then we started with Tom, and then we've just worked our way across. But I always try and make sure I still go and see their panto now. Like every year they're performing, if I've got a day off, I'll travel over and see them. Sometimes it's a long drive, but yeah, very good memories of watching and then being in with them.
So what about you then, Tom? What actually got you started off in the business of show?
I've always liked going to the theatre, and the first time I went to the theatre was Snow White in Billingham, and it was Trisha Penrose as Snow White, Timmy Mallet, and Tony Blair and his wife were in the same audience. Obviously being from Sedgefield, they were just down the road. So they were in, and a few years later, my dad, for my birthday, I think, got me a trip to the theatre to have a tour around. So the manager showed me around and had a look around. I must have been 6 or 7 by then. And a couple of years later, I joined the dance school at Billingham, and they provided the dancers for the pantomime, like the juvenile ensemble, if you like. And I couldn't really dance, but luckily a couple of years later, a speciality act was in the pantomime Cinderella. Andrew Van Buren doing a plate spinning juggling act, and in between the matinee and evening shows, he'd teach me to juggle, do diabolo, so that kind of filled my time between performances and gave me something else I wanted to do, because I knew the dancing thing wouldn't last. And I've always liked the look of either being a director or writing scripts, so I did that from a young age. And when I was a kid, for Christmas, I got a little theatre built in the conservatory off me. My dad and his mates made it for me. I'd work in house tabs. Instead of the happy and sad masks, it had the Simpsons on it, like a proper cross arch with scene changes, and it's only little. It was great as a 6-year-old. That was brilliant. And then a few years later, I was the juggler in one of the pantos. I had to go to do a circus in France, I think, for the last 2 days. So they said it's for Dougie Chapman, the pantomime, so we'll just cut the juggling act. And Norman Barrett was in the show this year, was the Emperor with a budgie act. And he said, Tom's juggling. And by this point, a few years later, from learning the juggling with Andrew, Norman and Dougie Brown as well, they'd put a bit of a juggling act together for me. So I did the last 2 days of the run, and that followed up me getting my first proper contract the following year at Billingham again, with doing the juggling, and that's when I met Damian. I mean, my granddad was in the business sort of semi-pro. I never met him. He died before I was born, but he was a comedy magician, and he sort of wrote pantomimes as well, and bits like that for the Amdrams, but he did tour around with his magic act, and he wasn't in the war. And so yeah, I started off all by accident really, and doing different bits, and yeah, I've never thought I want to do comedy or I want to do juggling. It's just kind of, I fell into that because I was there, or that happened, and it's all kind of just come about really.
When you actually get approached to be a double act, what was going through your mind at that time?
It was a conversation with you through your dad, I suppose, at the time. He said, Damian's wanting to do a double act, because you started a double act before, didn't you, with somebody?
Yeah, I was at sixth form, and that's when I really began thinking, I could actually do a career of this. And I was doing performing arts at sixth form, because all through school they didn't really have, obviously they don't have lessons to do with performing or anything like that. So whenever we did a school play, well, fantastic, I was loving it, because I wasn't one for written work. So when I left school, I was like, right, I need to do something actually performing. and I didn't want to go to college because, firstly, that's mostly, you can't really study entertaining so much as you can study acting and that side of comedy, whereas I'm much more, I can learn things doing them. So I went to sixth form, did performing arts for 2 years, and then as soon as I left in the when did you leave? It was like March kind of time. Did all the exams, and then that Christmas was my first professional panto. So every year since I've been in panto, but I needed a double act partner from college because we were just messing about kind of in shows. We did shows for the class, shows for the school. Sometimes we judged, talent shows, and we're in talent shows, and everyone seemed to like us at school. But then he went off and did his own thing. Like he didn't want to necessarily. He wanted a steady pay, whereas this industry doesn't have steady pay. So like you have to look for your work, and you can obviously it does have pay if you look for the work. But a lot of people don't necessarily want to. They just want to know, like a job. You're getting a wage. So he went off and did his own thing. That's when I was like, right, if I'm going to do this, I need to do a double act, or at least start to look for a double act. Because I did a few pantos on my own before. Like I was the wolf, like Tom said, and then I was Daddy Bear, and then the year after I played Wishy Washy. But I was always trying to put into those pantos, like for instance the ice cream gag that my dad's done for so many years, like his take on it. He let me take it and put it into some pantos, but it's really hard to explain to someone that you don't know how to do this gag when they're not sure if you're just making up or they don't know you, so you can't bounce off each other, which is why with the double act we can now go into panto and go, right, if you'd like us to, we've got this ice cream gag, and then they're like, okay, we need like half a day to do that, and we're like, well, we've already got it.
We'll just put the kettle on instead.
We'll just put the kettle. But so that's kind of why I was looking for a double act, because I didn't have one when leaving sixth form, and then it was only by chance my dad was then in panto with Tom again, and said, "Oh, Damian's looking for a double act." And at that point, he was like you've said, you were kind of, it'd be nice for a change rather than just traveling solo. We'll just see how it goes. It was never meant to be, this is the double act. It could go on for ages. It was like, well, we'll see if we work and stuff,
Yeah, because I did the juggling and did like kids shows on my own at magic shows and events and parties and stuff. But I've never been comfortable talking, or at that time I wasn't comfortable talking to an audience on my own as a juggler, because it was a bit more of a straight kind of trick show type thing, and it was kind of it's a long time for an hour doing just juggling, and obviously bits with music and bits like that. But I've never. When I was just doing the juggling, I'd say in Panto variety shows and music halls and stuff, it was kind of what's the next step to talk to an audience and make it more interesting. So the juggling's like more of an addition than, it's a juggling show with loads of chat that no one's really interested in,
See, I'm seeing that kind of in a nice way. I'm kind of seeing like a little insecurity from you both. That
solo?
Just going solo.
Well, it's just that, like I said, like if you go into a panto, and you're on your own, you don't know anyone, or if you're just doing shows throughout the year, you'll walk up, like at the moment we're in a haven backstage, but if I was on my own, you might not know the people around you, and certainly as kind of I had an idea of a repertoire of double act acts, because obviously, as I said before, my granddad originally, he was in a double act for a short time, and then his kids, so the Pattons and the Chuckles, they're all in double acts. So then I'd been, all these ideas watching over the years, wanted to do one. But then when you walk into a place like a panto and you know someone next to you and you're comfortable working with them, even if you don't get on with anyone else, you know you're going to get on with them. Yeah. So you can,
And I think it's easier in casting a role or being in a role as well, because you can. Not all pantos have the budget or the need for a Bill and a Ben or a double act as just henchmen anymore. So we've gone and we've done Jack and Dame Trot or Silly Billy and Nelly or something like that. And it's kind of, you're watching a double act as an audience without really knowing it's a double act in a way, in the sense that you've got all that material you've got stocked up so you can still do it, and it's really can get in the story more as well by having that stuff you do every year that you don't need to rehearse. It's already there and the chemistry's there just to kind of crack on and put it in with the rest of the...
Which helps as well for, like, I'm guessing it helps with directors and producers, because if they've booked you and you've got that front cloth gag already, you don't need to kind of work it through with people and how you need to, go off and rehearse that for, a couple of hours. You've already got it, so you can just kind of perform it and then move on to the next thing. So the bits that do need rehearsing in the shows, you can spend more time on, and you don't have to worry about, the front cloth gag. Whereas if you were doing the who, what, I don't know routine, and you had a new person, you don't know what they're going to say and how you're going to word it, which is a very complex gag. But if you get a double act that already does that,
I still can't do the who, the what, and I don't know routine.
But if you get a double act that does that, then that you don't need that rehearsal, because you've already done it for so many years or however many length of time. So now when we do our tours and we do our pantos, we don't need to get together and do a day of rehearsal before. We can just say, right, we're doing a show tonight. We'll do, the ice cream. We'll do the 12 Days of Christmas. We'll do, all these different things and just slot them together.
It's a bit like a band having a set list, really, in the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
But instead of the songs, we'll put the jokes there and do that joke there, and blah,
So it's a lot easier being a double and going into these places with all your acts than having to learn everything new every single time.
At least if the audience aren't listening, we know at least one other person in the room.
That's it.
It makes it more bookable, though, I take it.
Yeah, because depending on who's booking, but as I said, you can either slot into so many different parts, or they know you've got routines, so they'll book you, or if they need a variety act, a lot of our comedy we do is visual. Rather than just stand-ups, we do visual gags. So we've got custard pies, we've got Busy Bee with waters, we've got props. So when we go to Havens and shows, we bring a couple of cases with us. It's all prop-based, but you don't get a lot of that in shows now. So pantos you still get front cloth routines and all that, but a lot of the visual messiness has gone slightly in recent years because people are worried of mess or slipping over dancers. They don't want to give people the task of being messy. Whereas if we already do that, they don't mind. You know how to handle it. You know how to clean up after yourself.
And I think that's how it works well. We can still work well with, say, someone else playing buttons or something like that, because we can be the uglies or, henchmen or something like that, and they can do the line banter and we can do the slapstick, and it kind of, so you're not treading on anyone's toes in that sense. So it kind of,
two different types of comedy.
Yeah, and it keeps it varied for the audience as well a bit, doesn't it?
Keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
So the chemistry between you both, already I'm telling that you work well together. You're not speaking over each other, you're pretty much in tune. When did you actually find that time when it clicked?
I think kind of, like even now, like last night we did a gig and we'll stay stuff off. I got custard pied out the blue out with someone in the audience.
That was fantastic.
It's hilarious. But it's kind of situational stuff. We have kind of, I think you learn each other's body language a bit, don't you? Like if I'm going to go off on a tangent or something, I'll step further forwards, and when I finish I step back. So them and Damian the same, so we know each other have finished in a way, so we're not kind of chatting over each other. And it's just by trial and error, really, isn't it?
Trial and error and practice. Like the first year, it was very much when we did our shows. These are the words. This is how the routine went, which was fine. But now, when you feel more comfortable, if something happens or something goes wrong, and you're going to ad lib, you kind of get used to each other's ad libs or jokes you can go to. So if someone pied Tom yesterday and there was a couple of jokes that came out that I knew the jokes but I didn't know he was going to say them, so I wouldn't butt in until that was finished and the laughs had gone, kind of thing, and then we'd carry on.
And like little bits of cross patter sometimes we'd throw in when we wouldn't do it every night, but because I've said a certain word, you know what to come back with, and vice versa, to finish off a gag in it as well.
Yeah, but I think you get more comfortable with the amount of times you do it. So if we've had a couple of months off, like at the beginning of the year, and we're not working together, maybe our first gig back, it might be a little bit more rusty. Sometimes you would jump in accidentally, but then the second day you're fine again. Like you just go for it.
And like I think if we do watch some clips from when we first did it, you're going at like 100 mile an hour. You're racing through it because you think it's not of a panic, but you kind of, the energy takes over and you go really quick. Whereas now if you watch it, you're probably going at half the speed, but probably timing better, I think, and
Yeah, you're more comfortable and relaxed, aren't you, with the audience? Just gel.
I suppose you've been in so many situations, especially holiday parks. It's different crowds, different areas every night, and different venues, and it kind of gets you more used to different situations. Like if something happens one night, you've kind of might have had a similar situation a few weeks ago, so you kind of have a bit of a fill you can put in there, or someone walks in front of you, you've got a line, because that happens once a week, or
Do you socialise much out of the double act? Because you live in Redcar, and you live in
Western-super-Mare, yeah.
Western.
Yeah, we do a fair bit, don't we? Mainly when we're working.
Well, there's a lot of... Because we're together so much, because we do Panto every year at Christmas, and we have done for as long as we can remember, even separately. And then we do the summer season kind of tours, and then we now do like Halloween shows and Pantos, and then there's February's, and there's always something going on. So the amount of time we're together is like most of the year. So we socialise in all that time because you got travel, and then you go out for a drink, or you might
stay at
each other's houses. So it's not just you meet for the job, do the job, and then go again. It wouldn't work. I don't think it would work half as much if you necessarily didn't get on. Some people, they might not, gel, but they do on stage. Like they don't want to spend time together because they have so much already. But it's not like that. So we'll go out for a drink like we did the other day, or we're staying at his house tonight. So
you get used to living with each other and working with each other, don't you? And
you got to
your
get
routine.
On. It's so much easier if you get on, basically. Especially in a double act, because then it will come across on stage if you really hated each other.
Yeah, I think we've all seen a show where you think, the cast aren't getting on because they're not looking each other in the eye, and you think the audience are the first ones to notice if someone's not happy, aren't they? Sometimes,
Yeah.
So do you make each other laugh on the journeys and things like this?
Well, sometimes on stage we make each other laugh accidentally. Obviously there's some cod laughs that you add in because the audience find it funny that you've done something maybe wrong. But on the journeys as well, so we'll come out with something, or you'll get a new gag, and you'll go, "Oh, what about this? I could add in when this happens."
And yesterday we were at some traffic lights in Glasgow, and there was a guy with a litter picker trying to pick up a leaf for at least 5 minutes, and we were just
laughing. Yeah, we were. It was roaring with laughter.
Trying to pick up this leaf with a litter picker, and it's been there 5 minutes, and it's biodegradable.
Instead of bending down and picked it up, he just had this grabber. He couldn't get it, so he tried again. Couldn't get it. We were there for about a minute and a half, just howling at him. Just random things make you laugh. Or you'll hear something on the radio, and then you can play on that. You either laugh and say, "Oh, that's good. We could actually use that like this." And then
a few Theresa May ones at the minute.
Well, that would never work, and you're laughing.
Yeah.
You're like, "What did you just say?"
At some bits we try and never try again. Got to do these things, haven't you?
But we, in one of our acts, one of us falls over, and we did that for real accidentally on the first night we ever did it. So I fell flat on my face, and it got howls of laughter. Like everyone was crying, obviously in the audience, because they think you've fallen over and hurt yourself. And since then we've kept it in. So every night you fall over, they don't know, the audience, because they're watching a fresh performance, they've never seen you before. You fall over, it's fantastic. But I think a lot of shows now do that more. Like they'll add in what you think has gone wrong, whereas actually it's, you've planned it. Maybe it goes wrong the first night, but that's how you come up with these things. So I remember watching the Chuckles as a kid, and they had, for instance, they were doing a haunted kind of house routine, and then Barry went up the top, and half of the set falls down accidentally when he's behind it, and then obviously they're crying with laughter, and the audience are crying with laughter. But when I was a kid watching, every time I went to watch, because I watched the same show several times, that's when I began to say, "Oh, it happened again. Ah, wait a minute, that's cool." It's so natural how it happens,
it's like
but it's planned.
Everyone loves You Being Framed, don't they? And it's giving everyone that You Being Framed moment of, that went wrong. And people will put on the Facebook page after say Panto, when that went wrong, that was really funny when you got knocked out by that light.
I was in that performance when it went wrong. They feel special then.
And someone underneath goes, "I was there yesterday at 2:00 and the same thing happened."
When that happens, you're like, "Oh no."
Oh, delete that.
Social media.
We've heard that before.
So you've not been performing for absolutely years, but have you found the audiences have changed with children and their attitudes and what they're expecting from you?
It depends what you're watching, I suppose, because I think slapstick, there'll always be a market for slapstick. In the past, a lot of people did slapstick. Like you had Eric and Ernie and the two Ronnies. Like they did a bit of both. They did visual stand-up stuff, but then they also did the falling down the stairs so there's always slapstick. But nowadays you don't see it as much on TV. I mean, you had Dick and Dom a couple of years ago, but that was about 10 years ago now. Whereas it's a lot of stand-up comics, panel shows. So unless you go to a theatre like a Panto, you don't see slapstick. So I think in that way, comedy has changed, especially the TV side. But as slapstick will always work, and that's what we love doing. That's why most of our act, like 95% of our act, is like visual comedy.
I think an audience is a lot older sooner now. Like from doing sort of children's shows, I did start doing the kids' parties when I was sort of 14, 15 myself. And say a 5-year-old at a party, you could do a trick and that might suit sort of 3-year-old to 7-year-old, but now kind of the age and the way people switch on with iPads now and technology, I think a child's age, they grow up a lot quicker, so there might be, say, a routine you might do at a 4-year-old's birthday party. You can't do that now, you get rid of that and do it at a preschool party. And like an 8-year-old's more of what like a teenager used to be, if I was switched on the hour with YouTube and like vloggers and more up to date. And I think the old stuff really does work. A lot of it could do with updating sometimes. If you do an old routine, we'll take it and change it, won't we? And just say like,
you make it your own, don't you?
Yeah.
But like if the routine itself, like take the ice cream gag, there's a lot of different versions over the years, but that will always work because everyone, no matter what you do, will like to see someone pied in the face. It's just when that happens, it's a visual. Yeah. That's funny because he's messy. So in that respect, with our double act, I think audiences haven't changed for us because it's a lot of visual stuff.
It's just taking a little bit to tweaking it to make it trendy, I think, and keep up with the local stuff, topical stuff at the minute, like Brexit.
Keep it topical, that's it, isn't it? And make sure, as long as we're enjoying ourselves, the audience are going to enjoy themselves, is what we say, because you're having a good time on stage, you can think, even if they're not having a good time, well, you're having a good time, so they must be having a good time. So, some of them having a good time.
Yeah.
Everyone's a critic, eh?
Exactly, but...
That's it. What about bad gigs? Have you ever had a bad gig as a double act?
Oh, yeah.
What do you say, bad gigs? Like, stuff's happened on gigs, isn't it?
We had one in a holiday park that wasn't finished yet. We were in the building site, and they hadn't finished building the stage. They had no electric. They had all these extension cables plugged into the builders' light, the light bulbs hanging off the roof type lights for the builders.
Garden chairs for the audience to sit on. Like it was a holiday park that hadn't finished yet. But there was still people in the area, and they were like, "We'd love you to come and do it." Oh, fantastic! We've seen you. We'd love you to come and do it.
There was sawdust everywhere.
Yeah, sawdust.
Still.
So we went in.
There was saws just like sat on the side of the stage. Still, they just finished making the stage that afternoon, and
did the act, didn't we?
It was alright, nice still.
But there was only about 7 people in or something. I mean, people kept wandering in and out because they were like, why is there people in a building site? So it wasn't a bad gig, it was just a bad kind of atmosphere, kind of like where you were performing.
I think that's quite nice with the double act in a way, if a gig's kind of not as good as you'd hope, because everyone has bad gigs, don't they? But you can kind of, as a solo comic, you're sometimes waiting for the laughter to move on, whereas as a double act, you can talk to yourselves. If you had to be on kind of steamroller, go through the motions to get through it job, 9 times out of 10 we don't have to do, but it's nice you've got that to kind of fall back on rather than, oh, this gag's awful, I'm going to be off in 5 minutes, if you know what I mean.
Never been booed off.
Yet.
Not yet.
There's always tonight.
So optimistic. So, Tom, you're involved with Liam Mellor.
Yes.
And you're writing or directing and performing are you performing in it as well?
I am this year, yes. I wasn't last year because I produced the family show myself. We're doing, did Jack and the Beanstalk this year at Billingham during the daytime. We're doing Sleeping Beauty next year, and we do the adult panto in the evening. So we're doing 2 nights that next year. So I wasn't in it last year because I was in the kids one a bit more. But I've got a small part as the Sultan in this year's adult pantomime.
And it's a bit of a naughty pantomime, apparently. The whole premise of an adult panto. Could you explain that, please, to the listener?
The strange thing is, you think it's going to be really, really rude. And there's elements of it, obviously, that are, because that's where people come and it's 18 plus only. But it's weird, we did some routines like the chocolate box routine and just change little bits about curly whirly and make it. They love the suggestive stuff because I think everyone loves feeling like a child again, but they love feeling like a child again whilst having a night off from the kids as well. So it's kind of nice. Everyone kind of let their hair down, and they had people that were 80 odd, we had people that were 18, and there was no demographic. It was just a really mix of an audience. We thought, how's this going to go? And they were really up for a good laugh, and it's kind of, they love it as kind of like a bit like a music hall variety kind of slapdash element as well of kind of, it's like a farce, treat it like a farce really, compared to the big production of a family magic pantomime, you know. And it's kind of like, goes back to a bit of the old music hall, and they love all the gags and the visual stuff and a lot of clever songs. They liked the rebits of that, and it's kind of, I suppose like any pantomime, keeping it trendy and topical, but it's kind of, you treat it a bit like a stand-up show as well in a sense, with it being just for the adults, you've got a lot more mileage for that kind of thing, like opening spots and bits of business and especially the visual stuff. And we did a bit of a different version of Out Up on the stage last year, and there'll be an even different version of 12 Days of Christmas with some very interesting props.
So when's that on?
That's on February next year.
We'll put the link for it.
Yeah. All the big boys and girls out there.
Is there anything in Panto you don't like to do?
I don't like getting ready early. I like to be last minute, getting music started and I'm still getting dressed. I don't, if I'm ready and sat, I lose interest a little bit. So I'd rather have that last minute adrenaline of, will it be ready on time, and you get there, and it gets you fired up a bit more, I think, when you've got a few shows a day or you're a week into the running, you know what's going to happen. If I'm sat there ready, I get a bit complacent in a way. I still enjoy it, but it keeps me kind of on the ball of, you know, well, once it was Barrow, wasn't it? I was getting ready, and as usual, putting my makeup on last minute, opening numbered started, and I started having a shave, and I'm on just after this number, and I was having a shave, and I cut myself, so I'm going for the opening number, pouring my blood. So I should be a bit more organised than that now and again, because Red Riding Hood had a look on her face.
Well, the thing now is, last year we played Ugly Sisters for the first time, and we'd never done Ugly Sisters before, and this year we're playing Ugly Sisters again somewhere else, but he kind of has to get ready earlier now,
Yeah.
because before it's just, you know, that you put the pancake on and then the cheeks, and then you're pretty much there, whereas now you've got to put the face on, the big eyelashes, the big lipstick, so you've got a lot more prep.
But I
So
still
you
got
can't
it down
really-
to 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
No, but don't like to do. I don't think there's anything, especially performing wise, we don't like to do, because I mean, I suppose a lot of wordy stuff we not like to do it, but because we're the double and we have all these routines, you'd much prefer to kind of go on and do one of your slapstick routines or something like that. Whereas if you had a lot of dialogue to learn, like if we started playing Princes and all this, and we had to sing, for instance, we don't necessarily like to sing because we don't think we can't sing. But so if we had a big number, but then saying that, we had a number last year, we did Big Blonde and Beautiful, and because it was a character voice, that was fine. So I wouldn't say...
I'm still getting my breath back.
I wouldn't say there's anything we don't like to do.
I suppose the one thing we maybe don't like is when someone else isn't interested, is in the sense of they're just there because it's a quick job before the next gig, and you think that's kind of
when
it's
you were
children's first impression of theatre, and you know, keep theatres going the rest of the year. And if someone's there giving it sort of half-hearted, it's not kind of, everyone's got to put the same energy in, I think.
Some people go, oh, it's just Panto though, so
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you obviously haven't been in Pantos or, you know, done Pantos to know it's not just Panto. There's a lot of work. Like they might do it that year and then the next year never do Panto again because they've actually realised it's hard. Because like a few of us have said on your podcast, it's 2 shows a day.
Or 3.
Pretty much every day. One season we had 3 shows a day for a long run. So, you know, it is hard work. It looks easy from when you're watching, but that's the idea. You're there to enjoy yourself. You think the cast are enjoying yourself. It looks easy, but there's a lot goes into it to make it happen and make that magic. You can't just create a Christmas magic by getting a couple of people on the stage reading lines. You actually have to do things.
Yeah, it's getting an audience to go on a journey, isn't it? And if they can go on that journey with you, and if it's nice and happy, and if someone's a bit, oh, I don't really want to do this, that's probably the one thing I don't like.
Yeah, but there's nothing that stands out though, is there, for us? I don't think, especially that we don't like doing apart from working.
Do out for a
But yeah, when you stood in the middle of the stage covered in shaving foam and water, you know, pretty much anything else is fine to do.
Uphill from there.
So where did the Ugly Sisters come from? How come you approached to do that?
We're just cheap.
Yeah. No, we've done so many different parts over the years that we've been a double and singles. So we've done like Broker's Men, Vatman and Robin. We've done like Spick and Span, all the different parts. You have to double acts. Models and Odd Job. And we worked for a producer, it was Blue Genie, who got us in Maidstone when we went to Maidstone. And we did Snow White, where we were the two henchmen. So we steal Snow White's heart or try to let her release in the forest, and we do a comedy routines or two. But then that same producer came back to us. It was last year, the year before when we got booked, and said, you know, I'd love to work with you again. I really want to work with you. But he said, do you think you could play Ugly Sisters? And before that, we'd never thought of doing Ugly Sisters. We didn't know if our kind of routines would work in the makeup, because you got big wigs on. But we thought, as you know, I chatted to Tom about it. I said, we've been offered Ugly Sisters up in Whitley Bay Playhouse. What do you think? And
it was like one of them. We thought, if we don't do it now,
you got to try it.
It's just a bit different, isn't it? Because you can be in every other pantomime, like you say, we've always kind of been the same character with a different name, and as everybody is really, aren't you? So we thought, well, that'd be a good change and a good slant on what we do, and just be a bit different.
But then I kind of knew we could do it because my dad and Jim, the Pattons, they have done Sisters a lot over the years, and their kind of comedy is the same kind, you know, slapstick visual comedy. So we knew that kind of comedy worked as Uglies. It's just we'd never done it.
And you've done Dame before, haven't you?
And I did a Dame before, like in one of my early pantos, I did an Ugly Sister, but it was just touring venues and like working men's clubs, theatres, schools, all sorts. So I knew I could play a Dame. Tom had never played a Dame before. So we did a couple of trials in his house and in our room trying to put on voices. Like, can we do this?
It's probably the most we practice. When we got the script, normally you kind of flick through it and go, there's ice cream routine, there's radio routine, blah, blah. But this time we actually like stood up in the living room, and because of course we did the launch day, and normally you're like, oh, hiya kids, I'm Muddles, see you at Christmas. And we thought, how do you speak? Because obviously you've not got the script yet, you never played that part before. We thought, well, I haven't got a voice yet. So that kind of came from nowhere, which is probably a good thing to kind of throw yourself in with that. So that was good.
Especially you had to ad-lib as well, didn't you? Like, it wasn't, can you read this as the Ugly Sisters? It's like, can you do a quick video to promote this? And we're like, uh-oh. We have got a kind of voice, but we've never spoken. So we're like suddenly, oh, hello everyone. So that was good. But
and
then
we did
makeup trials as well, weren't we, in the bedrooms?
Oh yeah, it's like that RuPaul's Drag Race in our living room. Still finding eyelashes behind the sofa.
And then I could stick on my eyelashes, but then Tom's not good at sticking on the eyelashes, so he either has to get me to do it, somewhere else to do it, or chuck them away.
I don't mind now. I get so hot, I'm just a big sweaty mess. So
there's an image.
Yeah. Enjoy that, listeners.
But no, when we did it, we really liked it. Like, I wouldn't say...
We don't wear the high heels on a weekend.
I wouldn't say we're now... Because some people just do Ugly Sisters because they love it so much, and every year they'll look for the Ugly Sisters. Whereas I wouldn't say we would do that because we love playing ourselves, and we can be slightly more.
Good to vary it, innit? Like February, you were the Dame and I was comic. Easter, we were both Brokers Men again, and Christmas we're back in a dress.
So but we now know we can do it.
Bit of everything, innit?
Yeah.
Like a fruit salad, really.
So if someone came to us now and said, "Can you do Uglies?" We know we can. So we're like, yes, and there's another potential job that you can do.
Princess next year.
Princess and Prince. Can you sing?
So where did you get the influences from then for the Uglies?
Influences? Voice-wise and movement-wise.
Which kind of made it more of a big caricature of ourselves, really, didn't we?
Like,
more like clowns, really, wasn't it? And put a bit vicious in places.
From people you can see, because we are very... Rather than nasty sisters, which you can do, we did kind of visually... big, over the top sisters. Yeah. So we were still nasty to cinders as you have to be, but because all our movements are very energetic, we did the sisters in our own style. So
and Paul, the director, was great. He spent a lot of time with us to get kind of the the real pathos bit with Cinderella and
Why are you
then,
being
like,
mean to her? Yeah.
the bitchiness in the boudoir together. He spent a lot of time to kind of really get the good balance of the comedy. Like we did a lip sync battle routine that he put together, and there was the right injections of the comedy and then the pathos with the nastiness, wasn't there? So it was a really nice balance that they worked really well to get it all right. So you were comics, but
Evil.
yeah, evil comics.
It's hard. It's funny. It was funny playing because we're always nice and funny. Like, you know, you're the nice kind of characters. Even if you're henchman working for an evil person, you're still kind of a bumbly, like, oh, I don't really want to do this, but she's going to hurt me if I don't. You're still that kind of character. From doing that to suddenly you have to be nasty, but you're also there for the comedy. It's a different way of approaching it, isn't
It used to be great. We used to like put a bet on how many kids you could make cry, and I loved it. It was great, especially at 10 o'clock in the morning. And there was this one show, wasn't there, where this two nanas had brought this grandkid, and they were sat on the front row. And I thought, oh, that kid was crying a lot, wasn't she? And I were opening for, oh, great, tick. And then next time we go on, I thought, the kid's gone. And then we realised after a few entrances down, this kid kept hiding under the nana's coat on nana's knee. And one time she wasn't. We jumped off the stage, didn't we, in a routine around the audience, and she wasn't expecting it, and she didn't know we'd come back on, so she sat on a chair. She shot out the chair back on nana's knee and pulled the coat over her head. And we thought, this is brilliant.
Checklist: how many kids cried in your performances?
Yeah. Put your bets on.
Any favourite moments for yourself?
As sisters.
As Panto performers?
It's when, as I said, you could some of your favourite stuff can be things that just happen in the moment. So there's a couple of times one of us has fallen on stage, where it's not supposed to fall on stage, but you're in a routine, and you slip over, and you know it's the funniest thing that happens, and you're always talking about it backstage, like, oh, you did that, it was fantastic.
My favourite moment, I think, was of something maybe going a bit wrong, was when we were doing Cinderella as the henchman. So we're after the Baron's money all the way through, blah, blah, blah. And we had this big, like, dun, 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 like, phantom-y play on. But that was the Uglies playoff as well in the same scene. So the Uglies playoff comes on.
We thought it was the play on.
So we come on 2 pages early.
Run on the stage, we suddenly pause, we're like, uh-oh, we're not supposed to be here.
And there's a lot of people watching at the Opera House in Belfast. So we thought, what do we do? So we just stood there, like, hanging on in the background. So the audience would have known, but everyone else and creasing themselves.
Yeah, we had to kind of be like, oh look, we can see the Baron over there, like pointing, pretending.
That's the most acting we've ever done.
Pretending we should have been there. And then 2 pages later, when our actual music came on, we just made it up and like did a few steps forward, like we're here, and then everyone looked and was like, so we got through it. No one would have known.
No one would have known.
Just when you're in front of 1,000 people and you know you're in the wrong place, you're like, uh-oh. So that's a memorable.
It's like the time in Maidstone. It was when Muddle's an odd job. So I got sent off to do Kill Snow White, wasn't it?
Yeah, with the
And I think you were doing you brought the mirror on or something, and I had to bring the box on to say I'd killed her. And we had 3 shows a day, and we were about eight days in of these 3-show days or whatever. And it was kind of, it's like, which half are we in, the first half or the second half? Well, because I had these 3 entrances with the Queen from the same entrance, each same part of the stage right every time. It was the same play on. She did a bit first. I kept thinking, what are we up to? So I comes on in one scene.
With the box.
With the box. I go, done the deed, Your Majesty. She went, what deed's that, odd job? She hadn't asked me to go and kill her. And I'd come on in the first half with this box.
I did that as the wolf years ago. It was the wolf in Red Riding Hood, and there was an evil kind of witch character in this one. And it was the same. We had a couple of scenes together. Because it was like a 3-show day or a 2-show day, I came on, did the first bit of wolf dialogue, realising that I was actually doing the second bit of dialogue. So I went to ran off, because that was what I thought I did. But then the witch came on, because I had another bit with her. So I'd done the wrong scene in the wrong place. But it didn't matter, luckily, because the wolf was basically just chatting to himself all the time. Like, I'm going to go and kill Red Riding Hood. So no one noticed. But it's when those things happen, they stick in your mind.
And the stage manager's got paper cuts
the most
through the
memorable.
book, trying to see where they're up to.
Where are they? What's going on?
We're still in the same pantomime.
But no, you can remember those bits. I once broke my toe on stage in one of our things we did. I ran off, because you run off with such gusto. Oh, we'll go and find whoever you're finding. Ran into the side of this stage metal bar, broke my middle toe. I was like,
oh, do you remember when you got knocked out with the buckets? We're doing 12 Days of Christmas in Scarborough, and it was the 5 buckets and spades, and I flung the buckets round, but I did it a bit.
He flung left instead of right once or something.
Yeah.
I would happen to be there, and he smacked these buckets into my head.
Bang!
Bang, and then obviously, so I fell to the floor. Not because I was knocked out, because first I've been hit by buckets, and secondly, you know, you can play on it. But then when I got up, we finished the 12 days. Everyone went off apart from us. Yeah, we did the song sheet, and every time I get hit on my head, I remember at school when I got hit in the head, my head just comes out in this massive bump. I don't know what, some people don't get bumps, but I get a massive bump.
Ball, wasn't it?
So then everyone, when I went backstage, was like, oh my goodness, your head, it's got massive, we need to get you to the hospital or something. I'm like, no, it happens when I get hit on the head. It's this massive bump. So I had to do the whole song sheet, whole finale, and then we went out and signed posters at the end with this massive lump on my head, and everyone was going, are you okay?
It was brilliant.
Is it part of the act? No, it's not.
This?
You don't get a bump every day.
Prosthetics.
Yeah, just stick it on.
Isn't the makeup good?
How important do you find that when you go out and you finish your performance and the kids and parents are all waiting to see you?
It's good because you know, like, you've kind of done a good job, like, because people don't have to come up to you and say, oh, that was fantastic, I loved that. They can just go home. But if someone stayed around in a performance and they're asking for your autograph, or they want to get a poster with your picture or selfie, anything like that, then that's kind of why you do the job. You want to make people happy and bring these smiles, certainly as comics. So,
And people love it as well because like they'll if they want to, they come and say hello, they can. And it's kind of they've got the money's worth of the bought a ticket. They want to come and see you, and it's part of their memories, isn't it, for a little child? It's the first time at the theatre sometimes, but just if it's down points, doesn't it? If someone doesn't like something, they'll tell you.
Has that ever happened?
Now and again, nothing major though, has it really?
I don't think so. Like, sometimes they'll tell you, like, the show, oh, why did this happen? Whereas...
Or about other people, like, oh, she couldn't sing, could she?
Yeah, one of them. Whereas you don't necessarily get people come up to you going, your bit was awful. Like, it's like, you know, so that's good. But the thing that has changed about going out to see people or people waiting is you should sign a lot of autographs. Can you sign my book? Can you sign my program? I've got a piece of paper. Can you sign this? Whereas now it's, you know, can we have selfies? Which is fine. It's just that is what has changed over the years. Certainly now you'll go out and there'll be like almost 50% selfies rather than can you sign a poster I've just got or bought.
I suppose that's the way it's kind of changed. If someone went to meet One Direction, they wouldn't ask for an autograph anymore because people don't have autograph books as much. They'll want pictures because they want that instant Facebook upload.
I was there with him.
Yeah, and get the likes on Facebook or Instagram and things like that. So I suppose it's that kind of mentality on a smaller scale, isn't it? If you know what I mean.
I love looking back at all when I was growing up and Pantos, looking at the programs where people have signed it though. I love those autographs because you look back and go, oh, he signed my book. Do you remember when, you know, like, oh, I got a signature here rather than photos.
Is there anybody that sticks in your mind from when you were a child?
I've got a lot of Ronnie Corbett's signatures because basically every Panto Ronnie did, my dad and Jim were in the Panto with him, like they always worked together. So I remember as a kid going to see them, and they were some of the most memorable Pantos I've seen. Is once they did Jack and the Beanstalk, and I remember I've got a picture as well, but I was only 5, I think. Firstly, fantastic show, but I was so scared of the giant because it was this massive, big not animatronic, but the eyes blinked and everything like this, and the mouth moved. I went backstage to see them all. And, you know, I know Ronnie and that and my dad. But then suddenly I opened this door. They'd lead me in to see one of the cast because I went around to see all the cast in their dressing rooms. And went in the Giants' dressing room and there's just this giant, massive head just on a table. So it's not the character anymore. It's just on the table and you're like... And I've got a picture of me with the giant head and the guy playing it. And my face is just like wide-eyed, like as a kid, like what is going on here?
What's happening?
So it didn't scar me for life, but that was. I do remember these Pantos where, you know, you meet someone and they're so down to earth and they get on with you and they welcome you and they'll sign your book and, you know, they leave a lasting impression. And certainly, as my dad always did Pantos, I was always meeting the other different people. That was good.
What you said about the giant, I used to hate going to the theatre when I was very young. First of all, 'cause I always remembered. At the very beginning of a pantomime, there's always going to be a pyrotechnic going off or some big flash and a bang and the baddie. I used to hate it. I'd be under the seat because I knew it was coming first, from being little, I suppose. And I'd always be sat under the seat waiting for that to happen. Then as soon as the opening number went on, I'd be all right. And then till the baddie comes on, I'd be like that girl with the chair in Whitley Bay with the coat. But I was,
And then,
So what about you then, Tom? Anybody that you used to go and see as a child?
I'd go and see the Trucker Brothers because it was only in Scarborough about an hour away. I'd go every summer on a Thursday night to the Futurist and go and see them there.
We were probably there at the same time. I just thought because I used to
Probably.
go with my dad on summer season, and they did Scarborough, Great Yarmouth, Skegness, Blackpool, like for a good few years. So you were probably at a show when I was at a show when we were kids.
Yeah. And the first comic I worked with as a dancer as a kid was Stu Francis, Crusher Grape, and he taught me a lot, from sort of watching the wings and seeing how somebody really works an audience, and it's a real craft, isn't it, when you see how someone's really at the warm-up spot for, say, the Dame or the comic and that, and kind of see how you do it really, rather than someone that comes off a reality TV show and suddenly they're in the show as a comic and
Don't know what to
they
do.
haven't cut the teeth or learnt the comedy and the timing and someone who really knows the craft, and it's really nice to look back and that's what kind of gets you going on the I want to do that, or yeah.
Do you get to go and see any other pantos yourselves?
Depends on the run you're doing. 'Cause,
Couple.
yeah, like if you're doing a really long run and you get one day for a week, you tend not to be able to get out, because if there's no pantos around you, you're not going to travel 3.5 hours on your day off to come 3.5 hours back and see a panto. But sometimes you'll get runs that start in December or in November, or they finish early, and then you can go out and see these pantos, especially if you finish early one night. You might go and see an evening performance down the road.
And if your mates are one, you usually go. If you say with someone last year, you go and see them where they are this year and bits and bobs, and go and have a catch up.
We'll try and see the local pantos in our, in the area you're performing in, because it's nice to just see what is out there and other people are doing. Like we saw a few last year. We went to see Newcastle, and we went to see Billingham, the Forum. But then the year before that, we didn't see any because the run was so long, and we were, as Tom said, we were in Belfast. You couldn't go and see any pantos because there were none around to see.
We're not that strong at swimming.
Yeah, you don't want to fly back on your day off. See a panto, like you could get stuck or something. So it just depends where you are really to what we can see. So hopefully this year our run starts in December, so we can go and start to see them. November kind of time, beginning of December, see what's around before we start. So. But
And what's your take on the big budget companies?
well, I like good, because they did a couple of. You go back 10 years, pantos were slightly not half as big as they are now, so it comes with its drawbacks. But because they bought panto, there's several companies that have brought panto back to everyone's mind. Like if you go to a town, they've got a panto kind of thing. And it's not just the smaller Amdram companies that are keeping it. So in the way they've brought panto back in a big scale, it's fantastic. And you'll go to one now, and it's almost like you see like everyone has like West End show quality, because they've got all the dancers and the bands and the big animatronic things. So it's good in a way that they've done panto back in everyone's minds. But then it's also good to see the other companies, have a family atmosphere, and you don't have to plough as much money in and still get the custom. So yeah, I mean, as I said, I like it because no one wants panto to die away, and if it has to change and do all these big things and show numbers and that, then fine, that's how it has to go. But it's also good that we can keep panto with the other companies that are around, so everyone has a share.
Yeah. So I think there's always been big budget shows like the big Val Parnell shows that would do the big tour, like they'd move there, then they've got Bristol next year, wouldn't they, that kind of thing. I think there's always been the big shows, but yet that big show will be someone else's, like a town's show that they only go to that one. And I think it's quite a lot of community spirit in a pantomime, and I think everything needs to change, even the small shows need to change and keep it witty, updated and modern. And I think I suppose it's what the audience make of it, and they might enjoy a big theatre, might enjoy a small theatre, and I suppose it's if you live in a city, you go to a bigger venue because you're in a bigger area, and the smaller ones don't mind going to a sort of 300 or 400 seater, and it's a bit more cosy and easier to park, and it's what they're used to, and a bit more community atmosphere sometimes, and less commercial. But I suppose it's like trends and fashions, everything has to change and just keep changing. As long as it does keep changing, everyone should be happy with what they're doing.
The only thing I wouldn't agree with some big pantos is nowadays, because it's all changed, they'll put in like a reality TV star that's never done a show in their life just because they're known. Whereas if you actually go and see that show, you can tell they've not done panto before or they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Where you want someone to be in it to draw people in, I understand, but if that person can't, they stick out like a sore thumb kind of thing. So they need to pick people that can sing, people that can act, do the pantos as well as just, getting a name that has been on TV once, like a chef. Like what's a chef gonna do, or someone that's just been in a jungle.
Yeah.
If you can do the job, fantastic. Put them in it, but you don't want to see, a family doesn't want to see, oh, that'd be interesting to see him because he's just been on TV. You go to see it and they're like, everyone was good but then.
Yeah, I think it's in the reviews, or if there's a professional review or a TripAdvisor or a Facebook review or something like that, and people might whinge, or so and so was dreadful in that, and you think, well, you bought the ticket knowing that you're going to go and see something they're probably going to be mediocre, bring the whole show quality down sometimes 30-40% just by how kind of lackluster that can be make a part. It's not their fault that they're getting paid a fortune, so they're going to turn up and do the best. But if they're not used to what to expect or the schedule, sometimes they're funding it themselves by going each year, if you know what I mean, to a show that might attract someone who's been in Big Brother for half an hour, or
should be able to find a fine line, like get someone that will draw people in, but that can also do the job. And then I think everyone even in that cast would be happy as well.
I think there's a lot to be said
for
having
a job, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for having a familiar face that I saw them they were in a soap, so at least they're going to be able to act, they're going to have stage presence, rather than someone who's just done a singing competition. Whereas obviously you can write a script and utilise the talents more to the strengths, but a lot of companies give you an old script where they'll have to suddenly learn to act, dance and sing all at the same time, or do comedy sometimes. And if you keep people at the strengths, I think stuff can work a lot better than if you throw them into everything at the deep end sometimes,
So from your own productions, has that played a part in when you go to casting people?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always kind of keep everybody at what they're good at, really. So sort of get a really good baddie, or if they're a name, touch on the name of, say if we had Ricky Groves of EastEnders, of Jack and the Beanstalk last year, and you do the odd nod to the soap star element of it, but he's a great actor and crack on with it, and he really knows his stuff. And then I think as long as you get a good singer for the singing, good dancers that can dance and make a good mash of it, it's kind of getting all the right pieces to make a good jigsaw at the end of the day, isn't it? Putting everybody in happy places to do a good job portrays over on stage, I think.
You want to play to people's strengths, like
Yeah.
if you book the cast, but then you use, like, for instance, an old script where it says you have to sing this song. If that person can't sing, don't make them sing. Like, either change the song to a song they can sing, or don't have them sing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, change the script to suit the people, or book the people, write the script kind of thing. So always, as I said, play to the strengths. Don't get comics who can't sing to sing, or don't get princes that can't do comedy to be in a routine that they're just going to be stood there kind of thing. So as long as everyone's playing to strength, then that's why these pantos work nowadays.
Yeah.
Everything gels when you see a good one, doesn't it?
And keep it short, snappy and little and often, so don't have a 15-minute front cloth gag, or some shows that'll have like really old-fashioned schoolroom routines where there's caning still and all that, and you think, well, kids can't relate to that now, because I suppose when I was a kid, my dad would always say, oh, I got the slipper, I got the cane, but nowadays parents can't even relate to that, to sort of tell their kids that happened, or do you know what I mean, to keep it kind of, I suppose, going back to making it trendy and topical and keeping it fast moving, I suppose. And I think with TV being so quick and easily accessible, people haven't got as longer attention spans, I don't think, they don't go see the opera for 3 hours anymore, or to keep it kind of 2 hours and in and out and have a nice time. And people would probably enjoy a show that's, say, 2.5 hours than one that's 3 hours, to get more value for money out of it being funnier, shorter and more enjoyable, I think.
Do you go to the theatre much yourselves?
Not really.
Individually?
No, I don't. Not really. I go to see comics and stuff. Like I saw Joe Lyce at the Town Hall last week, and And I've got to see odd bits if your friends are in it, but I think it'd be a bit of a busman's holiday sometimes, you know.
I used to live in London for about 3-4 years, and because you're in London, you do go and occasionally see the shows. So I have seen a lot of kind of the West End shows, but only ones that would take my interest to see. But now, in the last year, 2 years, I don't think I've seen very many shows, other than Pantos at Christmas. Firstly, because there are not many in my area, but then when shows are on, you'll find you're on tour, and in the evenings you're working. So like all throughout the summer when there's big shows on, well, we're 6-7 days a week working at holiday parks, so you couldn't go and see one if you wanted. And then it depends on where you are in the country. So if we're up in Scotland and there's a show in Bristol, for instance, you wanted to see, you can't really pop down and see it on your day off.
Yeah.
Just like the Pantos, you can't go and see them if you're not in the area.
And sometimes you don't know where the tour might take you. So like sometimes they'll swap the weeks round, so you might be up here instead of in Scotland now. So rather be in Scotland or down there. So if you book something thinking, we can go on the night time after we finish work, or to a matinee during the day, a few weeks notice you might be swapped the weeks round, so you're suddenly in Cornwall instead of Berwick. You know.
But I used to see I used to, when I saw the comics, I used to go and see the more visual comics for my taste. Like I went to see Lee Evans a lot when he was around, and Bill Bailey, he does a lot of piano visual kind of sound music. So that was kind of my cup of tea. I'd go and see the visual kind of things. Whereas I know you've seen a few stand-ups. I've seen a few, have I seen? Yeah, I saw Michael McIntyre, he was quite good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the shows we have seen are more comedy based, because I'm guessing we do comedy and we can kind of relate to it.
And with pantomime, I think it's interesting how alternative comics are starting to go into pantomime a bit more now, like Al Murray was last year, and bits like Joe Brand and things. But I think it's good if they've got that good bit of vehicle, like as a landlord and stuff. And it's interesting how it's, rather than having your own sort of 10 minutes, like if you're a comic would have had a gag back in the olden days, or you can come and do that gag with me as a front cloth and bits like that, because obviously they haven't got their own panto spot, if you like, whereas a variety show you can do your variety spot in the pantomime and it kind of, there's no difference. So it's really interesting and good to keep it modern. I think that there is that kind of alternative comic going into roles as the henchman and bits like that, and it
changing with the TV, aren't they?
Yeah, it keeps it modern, I suppose, and it's really good.
Have you got any ambitions as a double act and as individuals?
Ambitions, I mean, I just like to see theatres that are still going, like different theatres performing in different places. So, I'd be happy to play different theatres all the time, really. I mean, the ambition is to see these buildings, and especially certainly the ones that are still going. Like, unfortunately, the Futurist in Scarborough got pulled down recently, and we do a bit of summer work in Scarborough, and we drove past this summer, and it was half down, so you could see all the old seats, and you just think it's so sad. Like, actually, I knew it was going to be pulled down, but when you see half of it down and there's the old seats that are still there being rubbled, you think you could have sold them to, theatre folk would love a couple of those seats or something, but they won't do it because they'd rather sell them all. So any theatre that's still going, or that I've been to as a kid, I'd love to then perform in it. That is what you aim for, really, to do all these different things. But as long as you're performing and you're making people smile, doing what you love, then I'd be happy. But I wouldn't say there's one thing I love to do. I mean, obviously everyone would say play the Palladium, because who wouldn't want to play that? But an ambition, as I said, as long as you can see different theatres around the country,
You're getting a variety, isn't it?
Yeah. What about your ambition?
I suppose to keep learning, I suppose. I never like feeling complacent or I'm doing the same thing all the time. It's nice to have a bit of variety, like doing the parks and the production side, and then going into pantomime and things. And it's just always learning another skill or something else a bit different, or even as a hobby doing something a bit different, to kind of just keep fresh rather than sat in the same.
Staying.
Yeah, doing the same gags and the same thing, and that's why we like to shake stuff up quite a bit, don't we?
Well, yeah, this is why it's good with the shows throughout the year we do, because it's not like a panto where it's all scripted. If we're feeling a bit complacent with a gag, we'll change it. Like, we might have done the same routine for, say, a year and a half, but then we'll change it all for the next time. So next year we won't be doing any of the gags that we've done this year because we'll make it all fresh. Because then you do find that holiday makers and audiences sometimes come back to the same places, so you don't want to go back to a room that has like seen you last year. Oh, I saw that gag, and they know all your bits and pieces, and they know the cod dries and
And not only that, it's a bit like if we did, they might have only been once or twice on holiday, so they've only seen us a couple of times, and that can be enough sometimes to kind of need something new. But I think with us as well, if you've done this particular act for 3 years of the holiday parks, haven't we? Changed a little bit.
2.5, yeah.
But it's changing for us. Like last night, we put some new bits in we hadn't done before, didn't we? And just to keep just the odd little change.
Keep
each
it
night
fresh for yourself, and then you're more.
It keeps it interested for us and them, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, is there any way you wanted to play Ambition-wise?
I've never been nostalgic about a venue. It's more kind of an atmosphere you can create in a venue, I think, and an audience. Like we did that show in a building site, and the audience had a nice time. So I think it's what you can do with an audience and go on a journey with an audience, rather than where the audience are in. Because you could be in a shed, couldn't you, at the end of the day? And as long as they're having a nice time, and we're having a nice time, everyone's happy.
No, I always ask this question as well. What do you prefer, a matinee or an evening performance?
I think we differ on this. I much prefer an evening performance because I think it's probably from when I was a kid. But when we used to see the shows, or I used to go and visit my dad or the Chuckles doing a show, we used to go out shopping in the day. You know, you wear yourself out, and then in the evening you're like, oh, we're going to the theatre this evening. So I'd always get excited, and then you go in and it's dark, and you're like, oh, this is, you know, that's how I imagine like pantos and that. So if I was going to go and see a panto, I'd much prefer to do one in the evening or see one in the evening, because otherwise for me, if you do it in the day, you come out in the evening and then you're kind of done. What do you do in the evening? Like, you just go home again and watch the TV. Whereas I'd rather get ready for the show, go out in the evening. Oh, I'm going to the theatre tonight, see the show, fantastic, you're laughing away, and then, you know, you go home again. Whereas I think you've said in the past, it's the other way around for you, isn't it?
I love a matinee. Admittedly, I do prefer a family matinee. But I don't know, I don't like working nights. No, I mean, I do enjoy evening shows, but a matinee for me is kind of, it's always, you know, you're ready. It's the first time you've been on stage for the day, you're fresher, and your costume doesn't smell yet, and it's nice to be, I don't know, a bit more fresher, I think, and kind of out. I like the first. No, I don't like the first entrance of a matinee sometimes, because you're kind of getting woke up for the day and you think, oh, I've not coughed yet, and you know, I think once you've got awake, I do like a matinee, especially the second half of a matinee, I think, because you've got yourself warmed up and you think, oh, I've got to do it again now. But it's kind of that halfway stage of the day and really gets you going. And I think you get a lot of younger families in a matinee as well, so it's kind of even more exciting that they might not have been in the theatre before, and you could be the first person they've seen on a stage, and it's really kind of nice and exciting.
What about school children? How do you find performing for them?
It's different shows with school children. Like if you do pantos, you'll find the school kids will laugh at different things. Like certainly when you have a run where the first week is school kids, or maybe the first 2 weeks if you've got a long run, but the first week is all school kids. So you've done about, 10 to 18 shows before you get your proper evening audience. And then as soon as you get the proper evening audience, you kind of can gauge much more how the show is going to work, because the school kids won't get half the gags that are just normal gags, or maybe they'll go over the top of their heads, but there's a lot of gags in there that you're writing for a family.
Yeah.
And the kids aren't a family, they'll laugh at you falling over, they'll laugh at, oh, that's funny, you got slapped around the face, so they will laugh at
give them a ghost gag on a UV scene and they're happy.
Yeah. So we've always been quite lucky, because with our slapstick and custard pies, then they get the laughs from us. But it's a lot harder for the princes and the other people in it, where they're going out, they're saying the lines, they're doing the songs. The kids sometimes would get bored in a song, or the love scene, they might go ugh and shout out when they kiss. Whereas you get the family audience, and every gag hopefully hits home. You get the constant laughs rather than just big one go laughs from the kids.
I think it all depends how a show's engineered as well. If it's got a good balance from the off of slapstick and some good family humour as well, and then do the odd tweak for school shows, maybe change the odd gag for Buttons' opening spot, so it's maybe not as innuendo, blah blah blah. But I think it's good to, if everything's got a good mix, it kind of gives it that But you get school kids that come back with their families at Christmas again, don't you?
Yeah, they see it twice.
And by that point, it's a completely different show because the school kids are all gone, and there's maybe extra bits put in. And I know some shows we've done before. There's an extra whole routine just in the family shows because the turnaround time for the cleaning the theatre, and just because it's maybe not unfriendly for schools, but not as it wouldn't be worth doing it in a school show because they wouldn't get the irony of some bits. Or
It's also good that I think with a family audience or an evening audience, when it's not the school kids, they can really be with you on the stage. Like, they know if something's going right and you go off on a slight tangent, they'll come with you on that journey. Whereas the school kids are there solely they don't get that. They're there for the laughs. They're there for that's funny, I'm laughing. Whereas, with the adult audience, you can sometimes play on that, or, you do something different and they'll get it. Whereas school kids wouldn't get it as much, which doesn't matter. As I said, we love performing to school kids because they laugh, and the adults laugh, but it's completely different shows. If you do a school audience, then an evening one, 2 different shows, whereas you're doing the same things. It's just how the audience reacts to it all.
yeah, and that matinees could be a younger crowd in general audiences as well, can't they?
Yeah.
I think before the evenings, sometimes we've gone out for evenings and it's been 90% adults, but it's sort of same show, but they just everyone's a big kid at pantomime, man.
Yeah, and the ghost gag scenes, if your panto's got a ghost gag, it's deafening the amount. When the kids are in, it's behind you, or the ghost they're shouting at the top of their lungs. I mean, if I had to pick, I think I'd still pick an adult audience, like a family audience, over the school kids. But there's nothing like being on the stage when you've got 500 kids shouting at the top of their voices,
and it's that they really feel for you, that the feeling that ghost is really going to steal you, or
they're really scared, aren't they?
Or they're really worried about Aladdin going in the cave, and it's when you see kids, Cinderella's really getting beaten up, and you think, when you see him nearly cry, really hating the baddie, and obviously was being baddies for the first time together last year, you really felt that even more because they hated you, and it's nice to see what an impact you have on, their Christmas, really, in their little life.
I remember hating it, seeing pantos where someone on the stage and then the ghost's going to get them. You're like, no, don't get him. Well, I wonder if he'll get him this time.
Behind you again for the 3rd time this week.
When you go and see a panto, do you join in?
Join in
with all the...
It depends. It really depends where you are in the audience. Because if you're just sat with you and your wife, like my wife comes with me sometimes, or Tom will come with me. If you just sat on your own, not necessarily near the crowd, like you're a row back or something, I don't think you tend to join in, because 2 people shouting from the back, it's a bit like, it's a bit weird. Whereas if you're in the middle, like you've booked just to see a show, and you're right in the middle and the audience all around you, you do join in. It's that kind of crowd atmosphere. But when we go and see a show now, we either we'll get in or we buy a ticket, but we tend to be at the back or something, like watching how they do it, all, and the sound man and all this kind of stuff. So I try and join in, but sometimes you'll join in the first time, you're like, he's behind, and you're like, I'm shouting on my own over here. Like,
you're a bit knackered after doing 2 or 3 shows yourself for the same day, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's good to see your mates and have a catch up and, just have a bit of a nice night out yourself.
And there's always something different in another panto. So you might be doing a panto or a gag or something like that, and you might see the gag on the stage that but they'll always add something in, an ad lib, or they might do something differently that's, it makes you laugh. So it's always good to see other pantos, to see how they've interpreted that gag that everyone does, or ghost gag that you've seen before, what they do. Just one line will make you laugh suddenly. You're like, well, I've seen this gag 19 times. Like, why am I still laughing? But you still laugh and smile, don't you? Like our partners are probably sick of seeing our same stuff.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because it's in different it's in different shows and different, costumes and things like that. The amount of times they've probably seen the way we do a radio routine, it's the same thing they've seen before, but they'll still find themselves laughing because of either the set behind you or the way you're doing it, or you said something different. Then, like, that's fantastic.
And it's like there's like a stigma sometimes, I think, of some people say, it's only pantomime, it's not proper theatre, blah blah blah. But then I think sometimes there can be like this hierarchy of different pantomime rivalry, if you like. But I think pantomime's quite personal for an audience, and if that audience is happy and having a nice time, there's you know, people think, oh, so-and-so are in from so-and-so, we better be good and all that. But you think, it's the audience there with entertain at the end of the day, isn't it? And
plus, if a theatre doesn't do much throughout the year, you might find they have a fantastic panto at the end, because panto, like, a lot of the time keeps venues going. Because it's like you're in there for a month, or you're in there for a month and a half, 2 months, with the constant audience. You're not going in there for a day, like shows do, go in there for a day and you're gone again. Because you're in there so long, that's why it can keep theatres, you know, booking others and going, because it's so long over Christmas. And I think a lot of this country have this magical, oh, it's Christmas time, I'm going to go and see a panto. You get that feeling. Even if it's in January, there's something about Christmas and pantos where you're like, it's Christmas, we need to book our panto, we need to go and see it. Where should we go this year?
When the decorations get out in the shops and like in July, and you think, guys, it must be nearly pantomime time now.
And when you're walking into a panto, I certainly feel this, like you're walking in and there's Christmas decorations up, you're like, oh, it's almost Christmas now. Like if I wasn't in a panto at Christmas, or if we weren't in a panto at Christmas, it wouldn't be a Christmas. Like, because we've done it for so long, or we've seen, certainly when I was growing up, I've seen a panto every single year. It's now, you know, if we couldn't get a panto at Christmas, it'd be like, what do I do? Like, what do I do? Whereas people don't get that aren't in the industry. They're like, oh, wouldn't you like to have Christmas not in work or in a panto? And
It's
you're
as much
like,
tradition
no,
as
not
Turkey
really.
now, isn't it?
Yes, it's your panto tradition, which is why you'll always find so many people in pantos going for these parts, because they feel the same. And you might only get Christmas Day off, but that's how we like it. Like, that is our build up to Christmas. And you'll go and see family, or they'll come up to you on Christmas if they can. You'll always try and have the Christmas, you know, with your family. You might not be there on the build up, but it's the way it kind of makes you feel.
It's part of that. It's quite nice for that race home on Christmas Eve, like packing the car as you go while the show's still on.
Christmas feeling.
And then, like, you know, a couple of times driven home in your costume, so you get home quick enough. And then, as long as you take it back. But
You get the buzz, don't you?
it's getting that like tradition of, oh, got to get back before, you know, mass, and can go and have a bit of turkey.
And you know you're making people's Christmases as well. So when you've got a full audience on Christmas Eve, which a lot of the time Christmas Eves are the packed out ones.
Yeah.
You know you're also making their Christmas. Or we always go and see a Christmas on Christmas Eve, a panto on Christmas Eve. Whereas other people would be like, oh, I wouldn't want to work on Christmas. You know, everyone's got their different takes on it.
It's like, as a performer as well, I think Christmas Eve is one of the most magical days of shows, but Boxing Day is one of the worst. I think because everyone's that full in the audience, you don't get half the volume you've had all week. Everyone on stage is that full, but then the next day, between Christmas and New Year, so like the 27th to the New Year's Eve, sorry, it's brilliant again. It's just everyone's that full the next day, I think. And it's like a rush to get back, and you know, and it's...
We want to play with our presents.
Yeah. I want to play with my Game Boy.
Game Boy. Get back a bit.
Bit older.
Have you had any favourite moments such as heckles?
Heckles?
Any favourite heckles?
I've got one, but I don't know if I can say it.
Yes, go on.
Really?
Always bleep.
So, we did, it was a northern pantomime, because you wouldn't get this sort of language down south. And it was Aladdin. And Aladdin and Abanazar did the sword fight, and they're doing the sword fight. And so Abanazar's on his knees, this sword, and Aladdin goes, "What should we do with this nasty villain, boys and girls?" And this kid shouts out, "Cut his off." And then this other kid shouted out, "And shove it up his..."
Sorry, kids.
It's a lovely time in Barrow, in fairness.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Heckle-wise, I don't think we've had any on stage.
We had a guy get on stage once and propose to the dame.
We've had several stage invaders, but actual shout-outs from the audience, no. Although we were in a panto, we did Cinderella last year, and going back to you add in jokes yourself, or you add in a fall because they think you've done it wrong or anything like this. They added in a heckle. So I think a lot of pantos did it last year. They might do it again this year, but suddenly from the back of the room,
No, it wasn't meant to happen. It started off as a...
Oh yeah, it started off. That's what I mean. So it started off for real, but then they added it in.
He had the key for the locking cinders in the wardrobe down Damian's dress down the top, and the buttons would shout, "Oh, where's the where's the key? And some kid shouted out, in the sister.
Oh, I see. No, I'm thinking of a different one.
Oh, okay.
That happened. I'm thinking of I think it was the fairy character said, "Aren't I gorgeous?" And then everyone's like, "Yes," but then this one kid from the back shouted, "No, you're fat and ugly." But then they kept it in, so they got this kid to go up on the balcony every day and shout that, and obviously then that gets the audience like, someone shouted back. But then with the key down the boobs, I had a key in my dress, and then someone shouted out, "It's in the sister" instead of on the sister, and then we kept it in as the cast. Steve Walls kind of added it to his repertoire of "it's in the sister," and then that got a laugh itself.
Not in the school shows.
Slightly changed. Yeah.
Any song sheet moments? When you bring the little darlings up on stage?
Yes.
Kid wet himself once, didn't they?
Remember, we got we were in a panto doing One Smart Fellow, which is when they get confused and they say the wrong thing. But the ushers got us some kids up. We had 2 each, and it was beginning of the run. It was like towards the first week, and they got up these very cute little kids, but they were so small. They were about 3 or 4, so they were stage struck. They didn't really know what they were doing, and they either couldn't speak yet or were so nervous they didn't want to speak. And we said, no, that's fine, but we need kids that are a little bit older, like 7, so you can have an interaction with them and interview them. And whereas this little girl just, she started crying, she didn't want to speak, so she had to go, and then...
So we had to change it to Old MacDonald.
Then we had to change the whole song sheet, Tom suddenly said, okay, because they wouldn't repeat what we were saying. They were like, should we all sing Old MacDonald? And then luckily the band were like, Old MacDonald.
Quick.
We got everyone going quack, quack or something. So you had to think on your feet. But then after that we were like, right, if you can't get them, we'll go in the audience ourselves and pick them, because then people love when the actors come in the audience.
So I think a song sheet's that could, like, if you're in a fairly alright show, a song sheet can make it for an audience. I think if you get the right kids saying the right things before a big finale, everyone has a great time, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think it's really, some shows don't have song sheets now, but I think maybe not every year, but
yeah, they'll change it. So they'll have it 1 year and then 12 days the next.
It can really make it sometimes, I think, can't it? Especially like when we do the holiday parks, we'll do One Smart Fellow tonight, and people are falling off the chairs, and it's the kids saying it. The kids are getting the laughs there, and it's really good that someone's kids can be a star for the day, especially at Christmas, on say Christmas Eve, and your little boy or girl's on the stage, and it's make your Christmas, can't it?
But our holiday park act comes from Panto, so we've got so many Panto gags that have been done. We've also got our own gags that are mixed in there, but it's like
it's Panto,
it's all visual. Yeah, so we take Panto with us, and we'll do, like last year we did 12 Days of Christmas to End with 2 of us, so you're running around doing all the 12 days props on your own, falling over, and then that will go into the ice cream gag, followed by an opening where it could be a shopping routine. You're throwing eggs in the audience. Obviously, it's a blown egg, but so there's nothing in it. It's just a shell.
It's real.
Let's spell it. Throughout the year, it's all these Panto gags that you use in Panto. It's just because I think 90% of our year is pantomime themed.
Yeah.
But we love it. We've done it as a double act for about 6 years, and then before that, as I said, we grew up with. We were both dancers at one point. Well, now I wouldn't say we're dancers at all. We can move, but
I wasn't a dancer then.
But
do you still do the juggling?
Yeah, we do juggling that tonight. I do a knife routine in this show, juggling on the unicycle, and I still do. Still do juggling like Sleeping Beauty at Easter. We did the juggling act at Beauty's birthday party, and there's usually either juggle and unicycle on for an entrance, or there's an excuse for a juggling spot to shoe on it in somewhere to have a bit of nice bit of change from some of the comedies, the verbal stuff. You have to do a bit of spot to music now and again and shake it up a bit, but yeah, still do a bit.
Also, kids haven't necessarily seen. They get wowed by like a juggling piece in a show. Like they'll suddenly go, "He's got knives out. He's going to juggle knives," and then we juggle over a person with the knives, so then they're all like, "Oh, he might hurt him," whereas obviously you're not going to hurt him. Although I must say, in the summer we did so many gigs. Tom was on his unicycle, and he knows what story it is. Tom was on his unicycle, he had the knives in his hand, and I'm backstage getting dressed for the next routine we do. But I suddenly see the shadow of Tom on his unicycle, and he's doing something different, like he's wobbling a bit. And I'm like, what's he doing? He's not started juggling yet. And then suddenly I hear this almighty bang, and I don't know what happened, but everyone started laughing, and then Tom had disappeared from the stage. I was like, what's going on? When I went on the stage, I found one of the unicycle pedals had broken off, like the metal had broken off. It was just on the stage, and it turns out he was on his unicycle with the knives. The pedal had fallen off completely, which meant Tom fell off. The unicycle went in the audience. Luckily, the knives were in the right place. He didn't hurt himself.
Look, I was rocking backwards, not forwards, otherwise I'd have gone in the audience with the knives.
And luckily, there were no kids on the dance floor, at the back of the dance floor. So, bit of improvisation skills that day. But
I think it's good to have a bit of juggling and stuff. It's like, say when I'm writing a pantomime as well, they kind of treat you like a variety show in a way. Like, have the songs, have the comedy, have the sketches, and like the Halloween show next week, there's a hula hoop act doing the whole story is we're going to the seaside shindig, a big pirate party, and we get taken off to the spooky lagoon by mistake on the way and stuff. But there's a hula hoop act there at the party, and a juggling act. Tommy, the juggler, he's a 15-year-old juggler. He's doing the roller ball with the knives blindfolded, and I think it just breaks it up a bit and keeps it nice and jam-packed. Yeah.
Speciality acts, they're good.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the future of pantomime?
Well, I think pantomime will always be around because it's been around for like hundreds of years, but it's changed so much. So the future of pantomime, if it carries on how it's going, will just be kind of, I don't know. It's hard, isn't it?
I think pantomime's always changed. Like, people might talk about, oh, pantomime used to be like this, but I think it used to be like something else before that as well. So I think, although it's always changed, I think it always will change. As long as you keep changing with the changes, it'll always be popular and appealing and current and modern.
But I'd say it's more changed. Like it's all the old routines, just changed to modernise it. So if it changes in the future, you'll still have visual gags, and you'll still have front cloth gags because they're changing the scenery behind. The only thing that's changed recently is bigger like props and budgets and things like this. So you'll have a massive dance number, whereas you can't really get bigger from a massive dance number. So they'll still be there. It's just changing the comedy routines to fit the times.
Yeah, and technology keeps changing a lot, I think, where there's like projections and 3D, and not only that, like the technology you don't see, like radio mics are changing different things. Like you used to have a big pack and all that, and now you barely have anything on you. And then like different ways, like winches backstage and different technical bits. Like a lot does change it year on year that you might not even notice as an audience, just to make it something get changed quicker, or like costume changes or costumes coming down from the flies to get changed quick enough and stuff like that, and sort of loading props up in the air. And it's a bit like a truck yard, really, getting everything, the logistics of everything. And I think technology could change a lot of that in the future as well, at the same rate as what you actually see on stage.
Yeah, you can do a lot of visual. Like people now do projections on front cloths that move. So like I saw, it was at the Palladium, but I saw Wizard of Oz, and it wasn't a panto. It was just they did the Wizard of Oz, and they projected the whole tornado scene on the cloth at the front. So pantos can look into that more, but at the same time, they don't want to rely on that because it's the spectacle about it being done live, which is why you go to theatres. Otherwise, you could stay at home and watch if it goes too far. But then again, I suppose you could bring in virtual reality to pantos. Maybe if you're doing a Peter Pan, give the audience like one of these Oculus Rift type things, so they're flying with it and then they take off and then you carry on the show, you're in Neverland. But the only problem with that is you need a theatre to be able to do that. Like you can't do it in the old theatres. You can't suddenly give everyone 500 Oculus Rifts that need plugging in, virtual reality. You'd have to have a new theatre for that.
Yeah, and it's like with going back to pantomime being a variety, I think, whereas you might have had 2 special acts in a pantomime, some people only got 1, but the 3D element's the new variety.
Yeah, 3D Genie.
Like variety's changed, but it is still a variety sort of concept, but just the acts in that variety might be more of a feature or less of not a human-based thing, if that makes sense.
And what's your take about these pantomimes that you get in arenas? Have you ever seen one?
I've seen one. It's just the problem with it I have is Pantos, you always want to see the facial expressions and you always want to see the actors close up. So with the arenas, they tend to now stick up 2 massive screens. Like when you see in a comic, you'll see 2 massive screens. But you do get to see the facial expressions, but then they also do it like it's a TV show. So they'll zoom in on him, but then it'll blend to him, and then the camera's then doing this, and then back on him when he's talking. So it's always moving on the screens. So you could watch that at home, but you want to be right there so you can see them. So, you know, I mean, like, these 1,000 seats, you know, maybe slightly over is fine. So 1,500 seats.
You've got to be able to catch the sweets and smell the...
Yeah, if
the
you
makeup.
suddenly go into 4,000 seats, 10,000 seats, like, it's not a panto. That's more of like a big arena show. I wouldn't call it a panto so much.
You've got to smell the haze and the dust off the pyros and to make it a proper pantomime.
Yeah. But it's just too big. Because if you're sat at the back, you can only see the dots. Or you're like, what's he doing with his face? I can't see unless I go and look at that screen. But then you're missing the pyro that goes off here. And if there's a pyro here, you're watching here. You're like, why is everyone laughing? And then they've looked at the screen because he's done something funny. So you constantly, where am I supposed to look here?
I think as a arena production, like I saw the big Peter Pan tour where they were doing all the flying on with the no wires at the air, where they had like it was like a big blaster thing, and they flew like what do you call it when you go in those when you pretend like you're falling out of a plane, one of them things.
Oh, air.
It was like free fall air thing. It was great. As a spectacular and a big production, I think like the Peter Pan and all that kind of thing. It's great. It's like Disney on Ice, I suppose. It's like a great show. But I think for pantomime, it's got to be cosy and intimate and nice. You've got to get an atmosphere, and you don't always get that in a big shed. You know, kind of big arena thing. Do you?
If you think you could get picked to go on stage, then that's a big enough venue, I think. Like, even the balconies, you can get up to the balcony, someone can pick you. If you're in an arena, it's going to take you 15 minutes to get to the stage.
Yeah.
You're in a too big venue. So,
It's
by all means, do
a
it.
big tennis racket, innit?
Yeah, by all means, do it. Like, but that's more of a show spectacular. Like the Peter Pan, you'd go and see it's a show spectacular. I wouldn't call it a panto. This is our panto.
It's more of an experience show than a pantomime.
Yeah, so as I said, I don't have any problems. If people are going and they're working for them, go for it. It's just, it will be a much different atmosphere to even perform. Because when you get massive venues like that, you go out on the stage, you can't really look at people's faces and react off them, apart from the front row. You just see heads, and you're like, where am I looking?
And I think as pantomime changes, I don't think it'll ever stray too far from the theatre as a venue. I think it's kind of not going to make that big jump because people like the coziness, I think.
Right then, it's come to that point towards the end of the interview where we ask you your dream panto cast. You can be in it, you can be watching it from the stalls, from the gallery, from the dress circle, wherever you want to be. And we're going to start individually. So Tom, we'll get started off with you.
I think my favourite pantomime's Jack and the Beanstalk. I think because it's not too girly, not too boyy. It's a good bit for everyone and decent story as well. And I think the first pantomime I ever saw as a child, well, it must have been the second pantomime, was at Darlington Hippodrome, or the Civic as it was then. And Tony Pearce was the dame. And it's the first dame I saw. And I was in his office a while ago and saw this picture on the wall, and the Chucker Brothers were in it. And I saw that Tony was the dame, and I thought, oh, that's one of the first pantos I saw, and he was in it, and obviously I didn't click till later. And I really remember him being a really funny dame, and it all had been about the humour and not the costumes, and and he was. So I'd have Tony's the dame. I thought the guy off that Bodyguard programme in Game of Thrones, Richard Madden, he'd be a really good flesh creep. Like Charlie Caroli as the king. And maybe like Paul O'Grady is like Spirit of the Beans or something like that. It's a bit of because he's always like a baddie, isn't he, most of the time. I thought it'd be quite good as a change for that. That'd be good. I think I'd want to watch it as well. You've got all these people in it, I'd want to watch it. And I think that'd be my dream.
So, Damian, what would be your choices and what's the panto?
Well, at first I thought, oh, what's my dream panto? It'd be Aladdin. Because I was in Aladdin just myself when I was starting. I was wishy-washy and I really enjoyed it. And I remember watching Aladdin growing up, but then I think it's more. That's more of a panto I'd want us to play, like Double Trouble to be in. Whereas my dream panto, if I was to watch it, is probably Goldilocks and the Three Bears, because not only do I remember vividly watching that as a kid, we've also been in it as different characters, and there's so much you can do with it. As I said, now you can have circus acts, or you can have. You don't have to have a circus theme. You can have, different people playing different characters, different takes. So I think I'd pick Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and then my cast is like a mixture of people I've seen do panto, people I've heard of do panto that like in the past, and people I'd love to see doing it. So for instance, like I'd want John Inman as the Dame because I've seen clips of him do it. I've read reviews, and I'd love to have actually seen him be a Dame. And also, I know my family's worked with him in the past, like they did Mother Goose together. So he'd be a good Dame. I'd want Ronnie Corbett in it as like a squire character, or maybe a nicer version that falls in love with the Dame rather than the evil character, because he's good at that. And then I'd pick like a prince. I'd pick Darren Day, because we worked with him once and he was a prince, and he's got such a good singing voice, and he's such a nice guy out of character as well. Like you can have a drink with him, or he should chat to you backstage. So I'd like to see him be played. I probably wouldn't be in the panto, or I wouldn't put us in it because I'd want to watch it. I'd put the Patton brothers as the brokers men, because as I said, they got me into this business. So like I was watching them, wanting to be in it, thinking, I wish I could do that one day. Like imagine making a life of making people laugh. And then so that's how they got me in it. And then Fairy, I'd have someone like Dawn French, which I know she hasn't done pantos. I know she's in the Palladium this year, but she hasn't really done a lot yet. But just her character on TV, like the Vicar of Dibley, the way she does it, she'd be like a quirky fairy character. I think that'd be good. And then baddie, right, this is completely out of the box, but Hugh Jackman, he'd be a well good baddie. I've seen him in films, and I know he didn't do panto, he's Australian and all that, but not only have I heard him in the past talk about panto, so I know he knows what it is, but if he was in one of these big pantos or this panto as a baddie, he'd be such a good, like, evil what do you call them, squire or mayor character.
Yeah.
It'd be fantastic. Like he did a Peter Pan film a while ago and he was a baddie. And it was just that's a classic. He was almost playing a panto baddie in that film.
Like good at hamming it up, isn't he? Like a proper,
yeah, exactly. And he can
villain.
play any part and everyone loves him, and he'd get the audience in and he can act. So I think I'd have him in it. So I don't know who would play the bears because you can't see their faces. But that'd be certainly a good panto to watch. But yeah, I mean, I'll certainly try and get to the Palladium this year to see their panto, because it's back, isn't it, for the third year. So I haven't been able to see the last two because we've been away, but to see panto back in that venue, that would probably where I'd want to see this dream panto as well. It's the home of variety, so I've seen shows there, but in my lifetime, panto hasn't been there until now. So yeah, if I would get down to see that in December, that'd be fantastic. And then host my virtual panto, my dream panto there one day.
Well, gentlemen, Double Trouble, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.